Thank you very much. Many thanks for the opportunity to present my doctoral research. So today I'll be discussing the evolution of treatments for rickets and scurvy between the 17th and 19th centuries. So my research falls within health archaeology, combining disciplines that are still relatively uncommon, like paleopharmacology and archaeopharmacology. The first step of my work involves analyzing historical medical texts, so treatises, dissertation, pharmacopoeias, to identify treatments for these deficiency diseases. And the second step takes a paleopharmacological approach, applying archaeometric techniques to ancient human remains, so bone, teeth, dental calculus. The aim is to corroborate what we found in the text. This allows us to better understand how these diseases were treated during the industrial transition, so a time of major social, medical, and scientific changes. So what are rickets and scurvy? Rickets is a childhood disease caused by a severe vitamin D deficiency, leading to bone deformities, and scurvy results from a vitamin C deficiency, causing inflammation, bleeding, and in severe cases, death. Both can be identified in paleopathology, and there is a link of comorbidity between these two diseases. Archaeopharmacological research has revealed that historical treatments included a variety of plant, animal, and metal-based remedies. For example, rhubarb, opium, cinchona bark, and even hemlock, the famous poison that kills Socrates, were used medicinally. Animal-based treatments included, for example, cod liver oil, which became the only truly effective cure for rickets from the middle of the 19th century. And then there are a lot of metal-based treatments, particularly containing mercury. We will focus on mercury in this study because there is an interesting paradox between the attractivity and the toxicity of this metal. Today, we know mercury is highly toxic, but in the past, it was almost seen as magical, an element that fascinated alchemists trying to turn into gold. It was used medicinally for over 2,000 years in different medicine, Greek, Chinese, Arabic, and Egyptian, particularly to treat skin and venereal diseases. By the 17th century, it was even prescribed for rickets in the form of syrup, ointments, and fumigation. You can see in the slide a box for mercurial fumigation. To fully understand therapeutic practices, it's important to examine the toxicokinetics of mercury in the human body. We know mercury accumulates in organs, skin, and hair, but its behavior in bone and dental tissues is less well understood. One serious hypothesis suggests, and particularly interesting for us, that mercury could bind to bone carbonates or even replace calcium ions in hydroxyapatite. So at this step, we investigate traces of mercury treatments in individuals with rickets and scurvy, and we examine osteoarchaeological remains from the Rutubeuf site in Saint-Gervais district of Rouen in France. The collection includes 18 individuals, mostly children, showing skeletal signs of infection and nutritional deficiencies. We will focus here on the individual SP5, who was a child aged 3 to 4 years, displaying clear skeletal signs of rickets and possibly scurvy. To confirm the diagnosis, we use micro-CT scan analysis to detect interglobular dentin. It's a marker of vitamin D deficiency, and the scan revealed a minor deficiency event between birth and 6 months. But this wasn't enough to explain the severe bone deformities. So we have here a minimum of 2 deficiency events during the life of this child. From there, we developed paleopharmacological methodology by conducting archaeometric analysis on SP5 remains, specifically on a tooth, the second molar, and on bones, vertebral body. Our goal was to detect mercury traces through a 3-step methodology approach designed to minimize invasiveness. So the first step, mercury detection by X-ray fluorescence, EDXRF. The second one, the quantification of mercury by CVAS, so mass spectrometry. And the last one, to localize mercury in the mineral structure with LIPS, laser-induced spectroscopy. This analysis allows allow us to measure metal concentration with precision, while also understanding how mercury is stored and fixed in different tissues. So what did we find? For the XRF spectrum of the bone sample showed a clear mercury peak, whereas no such signal was detected in the dental tissue. Moreover, TVAS analysis revealed a high mercury concentration in the vertebral body of SP5, more than 9 milligrams per kilo. It's huge. Finally, the LIPS mapping is still ongoing. The results are currently being interpreted. So now this result suggests significant mercury exposure, but where did it come from? Our first postulate is a therapeutic origin, but could it be to soil contamination, diagenesis, industrial pollution? Is it a pre, peri, or post-mortem exposure? And what was the economic and social context in Rouen at that time? So regarding the environment, geological surveys show no natural mercury deposit in this region, and France was not a producer of mercury. So this reduces the likelihood of post-mortem contamination via soil and pre-mortem exposure through atmospheric pollution. Regarding the industrial context in Rouen, historical research on 19th century Saint-Gervais revealed its reputation as a cotton parish, known for its painting cotton textile named Rouennerie. Many heavy metals were used in dyeing processes, but mercury was not one of them. However, Rouen was also known for the earthenware production, where mercury may have been used in gilding and enameling. That said, these workshops were located on the left bank of the Seine, not in the Saint-Gervais district, making the contamination unlikely. Finally, during the 19th century, many cities had mirror and hat factory where mercury was widely used. Archival research confirmed that such factory existed near the site. However, while adult workers may have been exposed, it's unlikely that such young and sick child would have been affected. So occupational exposure seems improbable, making medication or food exposure a more likely explanation. However, dietary mercury contamination seems unlikely too, as large-scale mercury pollution began much later in the 20th century, especially through fish with methyl mercury, which is still a topical issue. Medical historical literature repeatedly mentioned mercury as a treatment for rickets and scurvy. While we cannot determine the exact source of mercury in SP5 with certainty, the medication hypothesis is highly plausible. So what's next? Currently, we're expanding our research on other individuals from this site, as well as sites across France, particularly those associated with industrial transition. In addition, we are developing methodologies to investigate the other historical treatments, especially plant-based therapeutics. So we try to identify plant microorganisms in dental calculus, especially pollen and spores, with palynological techniques. And we will try to identify and characterize botanical components through gas chromatography. So to conclude, this study provides new insights into how rickets and scurvy were treated historically and highlights the importance of integrating bioarchaeology, archaeometry, chemistry, and history to better understand past medical practices. Thank you very much.